Hi, everybody. So far there's been some, I've found great information about business development, sales, marketing, bill collection. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So the good news is I'm going to talk about a very human process, break it up from sales and biz dev. Bad news is I am a introverted math guy, so we'll see how this goes. Let me just start with a few people have talked about this idea that you need to focus on what you're great at. And I think that's a good concept, important principle, but I'm a contrarian by nature. I had the fortune of consulting with the Yellow Pages industry for a while. And what I was there to do was to help them figure out how to move forward in the digital age. So what I would say is they got the focus on what you're great at memo. They unfortunately didn't get the until what you're great at isn't something people are willing to pay for. So I'm going to talk about innovation and a little bit about how we need to evolve as an industry, and specifically a process that we have developed within 2 Octobers for collaborative innovation that has worked really, really well. I'm going to paint a pretty specific picture about how we do it. I'm not saying you should go off and do exactly the same thing, but hopefully you can learn something from that. A little bit about me. I am not an accidental agency owner. I have more of a technology background. I consulted with, first I developed one of the first tool sets for automating paid search managements back in the early 2000s, and ended up working for Atlas, DMT, and ended up traveling around the world to digital agencies, helping them with automation, optimization. And one of the things that I really liked about agencies was the immediacy of helping clients. Software can be unsatisfying. There's a lot of times when the results are really indirect. I like the directness of that. Wasn't necessarily planning to start an agency, but I also started to see agencies that I really, really liked, like how they were doing things, and it really seemed a lot different than the kind of traditional get really experienced account directors and then pay as little as possible for liberal arts grads to do the grunt work. So I ended up at this company that worked with Yellow Pages publishers, and we like the industry that we served, another lesson in being careful about focusing too hard on what you're great at. The industry you served was a sinking ship. So the business that I was a part of, Local Matters, which is a Denver tech startup, was also starting to sink. And I met there my business partner, Chris Skavish, and we just shared a similar spirit of collaboration and really enjoying the process of building a team and sharing ideas, and we ended up kind of co-managing a team. And as our employer was going down the tubes, we said, all right, we've been helping them figure out digital marketing. Let's do it ourselves. As I said, I had some ideas about sort of a much more kind of tech-focused agency, which is more of a hybrid of kind of tools and tech development with agency services. So we launched 2 Octobers in 2010. By 2014, it started out with just the two of us. By 2014, there was about 10 of us. And some of you might be in this phase, some of you might be past this phase, some of you might be about to hit this phase where there's too many of you to have lunch together. One of the things I learned, so like those of you that call yourselves accidental agency owners, I had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't an accidental agency owner, but honestly, I didn't have any business running an agency. And I'm not kidding, I am an introverted math guy. So give me math problems and I'm happy. Give me people problems, I'm less happy. So one of the problems we were having was new people, like we relied on, you sit across from me, you know what's going on, but new people didn't feel like they knew what was going on, and that was creating anxiety and frustration. The quality of our service, our methodology of quality was be an expert and care a lot. I feel like there's a lot of experts here who care a lot, who probably also know that's not a very scalable approach to delivering quality services. So we had opportunities in front of us. Our clients wanted us to do more. We were mostly SEO, SEM. And then last, and probably most importantly, Chris and I were overwhelmed. We listed off like, okay, we just sat there and we're like, what do we need to figure out? Well, we need to figure out accounting. We need to figure out HR. We need to figure out operations. We need to figure out sales. It's too much. So I'm going to describe to you the solution we came up with. We've been doing it ever since. I guess we solved those problems and accomplished much more than we set out to do. So I'm going to get a little in the weeds. Try to stay with me. Hopefully you'll find it worth it. Okay, so the exciting name for this process, we call it goal groups. And in a nutshell, these are groups that get together and decide on a goal and work towards a goal. If there's any branding people out there, maybe come see me after and you can help me come up with a better name. But all right, so sounds kind of straightforward, right? Probably all of you do some version of something like this. There's the expression, the devil's in the details. I'm going to turn that around and say the angels are in the details once you sort them all out. So I'll go through each step a little bit, add a little bit of detail to each step. But in summary, what we do as an organization is we all get together and we have a planning meeting and we plan out goals that we're going to tackle for the next quarter. The process goes in 3-month cycles. We decide on goals that we want to accomplish. We divvy up into groups. The groups work towards those goals, and we all get back together and we say, how do we do? So specifically, all right, so step 1, brainstorming. I am not really an expert on brainstorming, so I'm not going to tell you how we go about brainstorming. Honestly, what I tend to do is do a Google search and come up with some new ideas. Brainstorming seems to work better if you change it up a little. But the thing that I want to get across about this step of the process is it's very democratic. So I am a leader in the company. My colleague Serena, sitting over here, is also a leader in the company. We come with ideas, but our ideas aren't worth more than anybody else's. And this gets back to the sort of idea of collaboration. Well, why is collaboration so important? For us, the reasons, I would sum it up in a nutshell. One is that I believe that you come up with better ideas and better decisions when you make it when you have more diverse perspectives. So that's one. Another is when people feel like they're part of the process, they're more bought in, and that makes a huge difference. So I guess least or most important reason is it's the kind of place I want to work, and it's the kind of place that our employees want to work too. So very collaborative decision-making process. We go through, we come up with maybe 20 ideas for goal groups that we're going to do that quarter that are based on, what are the challenges, opportunities that face the agency at that time. We then vote and pare that list down into, let's say, 8 to 10 ideas for goal groups. And again, like Serena and I, we might feel like our ideas are the best ideas. By the time we get to this process, it has actually happened that the idea that I thought was the best idea, I don't even vote for because I don't believe in it. So you know, I mean, this is about sort of getting everybody engaged in the process and contributing. And it turns out that some of the people that work for you, they might actually be smarter than you, but they definitely see opportunities that you don't see. So again, this is all part of this planning meeting so far. It happens really quickly. We then split up on the ideas that we voted on and voted up, and we take about 15-20 minutes and we form pitches for the different goal group ideas. And people will generally pick like an idea that they feel strongly about to help pitch. So a small group of people puts together a pitch. This isn't the goal group that's going to end up forming at this stage. It's really just people kind of articulating what we brainstorm. Right? The brainstorm might be sort of a dangling idea. Turn it into, is this something that we can actually get done in a quarter? So pitching. So one thing, I'm not going to talk through the types of goal groups, but again, I want to get a little bit into the mechanics because they really have ended up mattering for us of refining this process. But identifying types of goal groups has been really helpful for us for a few reasons. One is that we've done this process now quite a few times, and you start to learn like what are reasonable goals and should meetings go and those sorts of things for different types of goal groups. But maybe the most important thing is that some people on the team hate goal groups that don't have a really tangible outcome. And they've been really frustrated when they ended up in one of those goal groups. It's good to identify that in the pitching process. So say what kind of goal group it is. People know that this is more about, like, say, knowledge and skills than a client deliverable, for example. Okay, so there is another round of voting after that. That happens after the pitching is the end of that planning meeting. The round of voting that happens next is people saying, okay, these are the goal groups I most want to be a part of. And usually most people just end up being a one. So the other thing that happens at that stage is that people raise their hand and say, I want to lead this goal group. Another super important point is Serena and I don't lead goal groups. We will act as stakeholders. We might participate, contribute, but the leadership team in our agency doesn't actually get to lead goal groups. It's people who raise their hand. And it has happened that brand new employees raise their hand and say, I'm really passionate about this, I want to do it, which is really cool when it happens. But again, this idea that people are really bought in, and it creates exciting opportunities for people. All right, so goal group starts meeting, sets a goal. They meet. I'm probably worse at planning meetings, leading meetings than most of the people in this room. So I'm not going to tell you how to lead meetings. They get together, they work towards their goal, and after diligently working to achieve their goal, the last thing that they do before the end of the process is they decide how they did. So behind me, we had a goal group where they were actually developing what we call a product, but it's really like a packaged service around conversion rate optimization, and they picked as their mascot the Cro-Magnon, which coincidentally actually looks a lot like the goal group leader in this case. But the thing I want to point out here is this goal group gave themselves a 10. Our scale is 1 to 10. It's not 1 to 100. So that's a pretty high score. But we definitely don't always give ourselves 10s. One of the most valuable things that has happened is when goal groups actually fail. We've tackled things. We had a data science goal group when we just weren't ready. We just didn't have kind of the foundational skills to get into it, and it kind of flopped, and we rated ourselves pretty low, but in so doing identified important holes in the organization and opportunities going forward. So don't always give yourself 10s, and don't hope to always give yourself 10s. Okay, so goal groups are done. The team has rated itself. The next thing that happens we have this readout process, and in case you weren't sure who I was referring to as my colleague, the "we want you" person is Serena over here. So there's a bit of theater often in what we call it the goal group readout, and it's where the goal groups get together and they share what they've accomplished with everybody else. This is one of my favorite days of the quarter, whatever. Like I'm always really excited about readout day because it's kind of cool to see what everybody else has been working on, and you kind of learn a lot. Again, it's an hour-and-a-half meeting. Because of the size of our team, we have about 6 goal groups. The goal groups tend to be 4 to 5 people. So everybody has to stick to a pretty tight format, and it's super interesting. Things that we ask people to present, this is a pretty rigid format, what the goal was, what did they actually accomplish towards the goal, did they learn things along the way, like the data science goal group learns that we weren't ready for this, we needed some more foundational skills. Then did they attain their goal, how did they do in their goal, and then the last thing is if there are recommended next steps. So everybody follows this format. One thing I want to emphasize is that we've developed kind of a cadence around this process that I think is really important. Any sailors out here in the crowd? We're in Colorado, so it's not a big sailing state. So I'm not a sailor, but my uncles were all sailors. I spent a lot of time on boats as a kid. And one of the most thrilling things about sailing is when you're on a boat with people that know the boat and know each other. It's just, I don't know, it's like an organism where like one person throws a rope and the other person catches it without looking. It's a really cool process. That's kind of where we're at with goal groups, is that we've developed this cadence. Everybody's familiar with it. That repetition, I think, has been an important part of the success. Sort of last but not least, in the readout process, like I said, there's some theater. There's a lot of humor typically. I just, this is Photoshop. I'm not actually riding a bear. And I'm not carrying whatever that is. Somebody else did that on my behalf. So, all right, so that's the process. How I mentioned that so things that the goal groups have done for us, it's been a lot more than the specific things that we set out to accomplish. Two of the most important things are that we're much more connected as an organization, which I think just from a morale standpoint is good, but from a sort of productivity standpoint, an important part of that is that we learn a lot about what other people's interests and skills and knowledge are, which helps us be a lot more productive, right? So if I have a question, I know who to ask. If I have a project that I want help with, I know who's interested in the ideas that are important to this project. So that's been super valuable. This idea that everybody has an opportunity to lead, there's different ways that has benefited us. One is that some people are just geeked out on one specific topic, and it gives them a chance to show leadership in that topic. They're not really interested in like whatever moving up necessarily in the organization, or at least like managing people or something like that. But they're really passionate about this one thing, and that has provided great fuel for us as we've kind of grown in different ways. Of course, it also is nice as an owner of the agency. It creates this kind of crucible to see who has leadership skills, and maybe somebody who doesn't, but we want to develop them because we think that they're a good candidate to lead people. So the other thing I would mention here is that everybody contributes to our direction as an agency and where we're going, right? And there's this idea of like You need to provide direction. You need to tell people where you're headed. And I think that is important. But I have to say, through this process, like, everybody's part of it. So it takes a lot of the burden off of me, because kind of everybody is engaged all the time. Again, that sort of boat analogy, right? Like, people are all part of helping us get to where we're going. And it's not to say we need to do a little consensus building time to time, but that's been really powerful. All right, so those are intangible benefits, cultural benefits, but I do also want to talk about the specific things that the goal groups have gotten done. We've had 68 goals, so in preparation for this, I went back and I looked. We've had 68 goal groups since we started at the end of 2014. These are the goal groups that we had in Q1 and Q2 of this year. I'm not going to describe all 68, but let's see. How am I doing? I'm going to talk about a couple that I think are illustrative and that I was a part of, were impactful for me, just to give you an idea. So the first one I want to touch on is exploring criticism. This was a goal group that I was a part of. One of our core principles is be collaborative. And you reach a point as a collaborative organization where you realize that you're limited if you can't give people honest feedback. I will say I'm good at sharing criticism. I'm less good at receiving it. And I've been told that I'm not always great at sharing it in a way that is compassionate or constructive. So I was part of this goal group. One of the things that I think is worthwhile to describe about this is that this goal group, as an organization, we'd recognized that this idea of sort of open and honest, like, sharing feedback was important. But the goal group, we dug deep. We did research and psychology and best practices in organizations and habits that organizations had formed around sharing feedback, different personality types and how people hear and receive feedback, and when it's okay to give and when it's not. And we did share some of what we learned with the organization, but for me personally, it was honestly life-changing, which is, you don't often experience, I don't think, life-changing things working in a digital agency necessarily. You kind of do over the arc of time, but in this kind of intense way, not necessarily. Just sharing, like, okay, why is it hard for me to receive criticism? Why do I sometimes deliver it the way that I do? And other people in the group had that same experience. So it was actually really empowering for the people in the group, and we formed a pretty meaningful bond because of it. So that's one kind of goal group. Very different one. In Q2, I was part of this budget management goal group, and I had developed a tool that was helped people who, so we have a number of clients that they have many locations. So a business with dozens or in some cases hundreds of locations, and we're managing digital marketing for them, and they have lots of tiny budgets. I developed this tool, but it wasn't really ready for prime time. We formed a goal group, and the people in the goal group helped me identify the features that we needed to add to the tool to make it more generally useful. They also helped with what are the resources that people need to use it. And as a result, the tool that was in very sort of rough alpha stage when we started, people started using it at the end of the goal group, and had a big impact on our organization. So just a couple of specific outcomes. Okay, so as I'm wrapping things up, I talked about sort of being part of the Yellow Pages industry. How many people here help your clients get traffic from Google? Quite a few. So Google makes more money if people stay on Google than if people leave Google. And Google's market cap is based on Google making a lot more money in the future than they make today. So if your strategy is based on getting people to leave Google, and Google's strategy is to get people to stay on Google, I won't go into, I don't have enough time to tell this story, but I have very personal experience with my business plan conflicting with Google's, and it's not a happy place to be. So, and if there's anybody out there that's like smugly like, well, I'm on Facebook, talk to a college kid about how often they get onto Facebook and see how you feel then. All right, so I'm just making up these statistics, but we as an agency, like what we sell is 90% execution and 10% thinking today. Most of execution is going to be automated in the next 10 years. So I don't know, whatever, these numbers may not be right for you, but the idea is that a lot of what we get paid to do today is going to go away. And we need to evolve, we need to innovate. I guess I think it might have been Steve yesterday that talked about sort of what kind of agency are you. I guess I'm a lifestyle agency because I love what I do. I've been part of acquisitions on both sides of the equation, and not for the faint of heart, and not great for somebody that actually loves their job, honestly. So I want to be part of 2 Octobers in 10 years. I'll finish with this is my main takeaway, Jim. Okay, that we've developed a process. You can't really see them, but this is my tribe. We love to work together, and we've come up with this process where we're inventing our own future. I don't disagree. It's important to know what you're great at, and it's important to be proud of that and pursue that. But it's also important to evolve. So thanks a ton for being here and listening.